Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching. Operator Flock leaned back in his station seat, exo joints on his lower limbs quietly adjusting. Weather models locked until orbital drift completes next cycle, he muttered, arms folded across his chest. 72 hours of calm, not even a rogue comet. Across from him, junior analyst Jarrell clicked his tongue. You say that like it's a complaint. I say that like I might finally get a full sleep cycle without alerts, Flock smirked, his bifocal pupils tightening in a show of ease. A streak of white light tore across the skyline above the excavation fields. Just a shuttle, nothing unusual, heading toward Sector 3. The atmospheric drones adjusted accordingly, compensating for the wind ripple. Below, the mineral platforms of Telluric 4 shimmered under the twin suns, their hexagonal alloy panels humming as they pulled exo-isotopes from the subsurface layers. Inside Control Core 9, a low but constant vibration filled the air, the rhythmic pulse of a planet designed for productivity. The Kurtal who staffed the monitoring decks moved with quiet efficiency. Their elongated forms, tall, bipedal, with cyan-toned chitin plates and thick, back-swept cranial fins, wore modular robes of woven synth fiber, marked with specialist glyphs on their shoulders. No weapons, no armor. This was not a military outpost. A third figure stood at the central terminal, Commander Kurvan Rek. Unlike the others, Rek's robe bore no specialist glyph. Instead, his mantle carried a single, flat, bronze band across the chest, the mark of Legacy Command. His posture was composed, shoulders back, crest folded neatly, eyes tracking multiple holograms in silence. At 74 galactic cycles, he moved slower than the younger staff, but with the gravity of someone who had already survived what others only studied in theory. There's no safer zone in 3 parsecs, Jarrell said, gesturing toward the region's neutral space hologram. No patrol logs, no flagged anomalies, no reported conflict for, 5 years? 7, Rek corrected softly. Last incident was the Uvosh smuggler cell near Garn sector. Shut down by Protectorate drones in under 2 hours. Flock chuckled. What kind of pirate crosses into a zone under direct Protectorate shield? Even the Zekai pirates know better. Jarrell tilted his head slightly, mandibles tensing. Honestly, it's surprising the Protectorate even keeps eyes on this place. Half the navigation AIs skip us by default. We're barely a footnote on their strategic maps. Rek looked up at that. Even footnotes matter, Jarrell, sometimes more than entire sectors. Before the humor could return, a chime snapped across the control deck. Sharp, not routine. All 3 froze. Sensor 4 picked up gravitational shear, said Jarrell. His tone dropped, clipped and alert. False flag, Flock offered, already moving toward the central pillar. Orbital equipment? Jarrell's fingers danced across the console. Running verification loop now. Another chime, louder. Sensor 6 confirms. He blinked hard. No. 7-2. Rek moved without speaking, stepping into the command circle. His hand hovered over the tactical holofield as it rendered a wide band scan. In the pale glow of the projection, a wave of crimson markers bloomed near the edge of the system. Multiple mass signatures entering system range, Jarrell said, voice tighter now. Non-aligned transponders. Formation looks staggered. That's not a merchant caravan. Flock, overlay signature spread. Pull identity traces. Already on it. His voice dropped. Oh no, Commander. It's the Dissident Alliance. Tag codes match raider profiles from Harun Rift and Hask Corridor. Jarrell's throat clicked in disbelief. That can't be right. No one attacks here. A heavy silence fell across the deck. No one has, Rek said. Until now. He stepped to the emergency terminal and triggered the Protectorate channel. This is Commander Kurvan Rek, Telluric 4 Control Core 9. Unaligned combat vessels entering system. Repeat. Confirmed sighting of dissident Alliance fleet. Requesting immediate support. The response arrived 60 seconds later. No flourish. No seal. Human intervention unit en route. Estimated arrival, 14 hours. No one spoke for a full 5 seconds. Then Jor-El whispered, They sent humans. Flock looked up sharply. That has to be a mistake. Tellerik's just minerals and administrative posts. Why would they send them? Rex's eyes hadn't moved from the message. They didn't send humans because of us, he said slowly. They sent them because the dissidents pushed too far. This isn't about protection anymore. It's an answer. The Council isn't asking questions. They're ending the sentence. Jor-El shook his head. But the Council, they never respond like this. They usually send blockade drones, maybe a warning broadcast. They've stopped broadcasting, Rex said simply. Now they're showing. But we're not a military site, Jor-El argued. We don't even have a defense grid strong enough to stop a long-range strike. Why respond with humans at all? Rex looked over his shoulder, the faintest quiver in his crest. To make a point, he said. This isn't about defense. It's a warning. But why the reaction? Flock asked, stepping closer. You look like you've seen this before. The slits behind Rex's cheek plates fluttered once. 10 years ago, the Battle of Javelin. The Protectorate was losing. 16 colonies at risk. No plan held. No line survived. Then 10 human ships entered orbit. They said nothing. No request for command access. No integration protocols. He paused. They simply acted. In 48 minutes, the enemy's entire structure collapsed. No survivors. Not even debris for analysis. Jor-El swallowed. But this isn't Javelin. We're not a war zone. Rex turned fully to face them. We are now. And whatever's coming won't knock. The deck lights dimmed slightly as power rerouted toward external sensors. Outside, the twin suns of Telarik 4 burned bright as ever. But something had already shifted. The calm had been punctured. The system, once thought untouchable, was now the stage for something no one had prepared for. They sent the humans, Flock whispered, eyes wide. Rex nodded once, his voice low, certain. Yes, and now we wait. The countdown hovered at 13 hours, 58 minutes. Commander Curavan Rex stood rigid at the central terminal, eyes fixed on the projected ETA like it might move faster if he stared hard enough. The human intervention fleet was en route, locked into vector, ETA holding. Nothing had changed. That was the problem. Everything else was. Around him, the control deck of Core 9 vibrated with tension. The calm from earlier was gone, replaced by overlapping voices, alerts flashing along every wall, and a steady stream of emergency pings from lower sectors. Still, the crimson markers marking the enemy fleet in orbit remained motionless, waiting, watching. He turned sharply. Reroute emergency power. Prioritize sections 3 through 8. All civilian housing south of the secondary ridge needs reinforcement coverage. Flock, now sweating under the flickering light of a damaged console, shouted back, Done, Commander. Shields extended, but we're bleeding output faster than recharge can cycle. Initiate passive mode cycling. Pulse shift the shield generators. Keep them guessing where we are vulnerable. A technician nearby, her smaller frame hunched behind a flickering interface, looked up. Chief Systems Engineer Lorette, one of the few females assigned to this post. Her pale armor chitin shimmered with stress-induced heat bands. Commander, she said, voice strained, we're out of redundancy. If you want the outer housing shielded, we'll need to cut energy from deep-level maintenance sectors. Rex didn't hesitate. Do it. Lorette bit her lip. That'll disable life support in the unstaffed zones. There's no one there, he said. She hesitated again. And evacuation prioritization protocols? We don't have clear hierarchy orders from Council Command. We're choosing corridors to prioritize. You realize what you're doing, right? Rex's crest flared slightly. I'm choosing who survives. Lorette stared at him for a long moment. "We're deciding who lives." Rek didn't answer. He just turned back to the main display. The dissident fleet had begun repositioning, tightening their formation, fanning out along orbital paths in layers. The command pattern was clear now. They were done waiting. The first impact struck without warning. A bolt of searing orange slammed into the eastern comm array. No warning, no build-up, just impact and immediate silence. The tower sheared in half, collapsing into the canyon below in a slow-motion cascade of heat and dust. 2 seconds later, the secondary relay exploded, washing the entire skyline in white. "Loss of signal on Echo Grid," shouted Jarrell. "Plates 2 through 7 down. Communications blackout confirmed." Rek leaned into the console. "Where was that strike aimed?" "Straight into our comms hub," Flock answered, voice hoarse. "Not probing, surgical." Another blast, this time from orbit, cut through the upper ridge. 3 subterranean mining modules beneath collapsed instantly, triggering a seismic ripple that destabilized the adjacent fault line. "Tectonic readings spiking, subsidence across Platform Delta," Lorette reported, already shouting over alarms. Rek's knuckles turned pale against the edge of the terminal. "Casualties?" Silence. Then Jarrell quietly. "Dozens, maybe more. Module integrity is 0. They're buried." A new voice crackled over the internal comms. Operator Gavik, from lower levels. "Commander, it's the power nodes. They're not just targeting infrastructure, they're peeling us apart." From the far left, another monitor flashed red. A replay from an external drone showed a formation of pirate vessels in low orbital position. The ships were a mess of patched armor, exposed power cores, and bristling, mismatched weapons systems. Different sizes, designs, species, Vorik bone frames, Urteg bulk cruisers, even a stripped-down Sectari hull. But each bore the same unmistakable mark. Black and silver gauntlet stripes painted diagonally across the hulls, colors of the dissident alliance. They fired without rhythm, without targeting priority. A medpod was hit mid-launch, civilian limbs scattered across the ridge. Anything that moved, another impact. A blast severed the main sky bridge to the auxiliary power center, vaporizing the tram that had just begun crossing. Rek saw it flash in the feed. The shuttle burst like an insect under boot, 12 lives gone in under a second. The power grid sputtered, lights dimmed, consoles blinked to black, then back again. The flickering rhythm of systems trying to reroute through broken nerves. "We're losing sections 11 through 13, Lorette yelled. Energy relay collapse. "They're not even aiming for defenses anymore," Flock muttered. "They don't need to come down. They're just dismantling us." Panic began to bloom. A broadcast channel opened without permission. Dozens of overlapping requests from civilians in the lower districts, each pleading for clarity. Rek cut them manually. Too much noise. No time. The evacuation corridors were failing. Systems were not responding. Automatic guides weren't syncing. "Commander," Lorette snapped, "the corridor maps are out of date. Most haven't been updated in decades. Emergency protocols are cycling outdated paths. Civilians are getting stuck in redundant loops. We have no crowd control." "Manually override the core node," Rek said. "I tried. It's not responding. Too much damage on the east spine." Outside, dust clouds blanketed the colony's outer ridges. The sky shimmered with atmospheric tremors caused by the orbital salvos. Through the haze, shadows of pirate vessels loomed like predators circling wounded prey. From the eastern side, another shuttle crumpled mid-takeoff. It hadn't even lifted 3 meters before an energy bolt split its propulsion core. The explosion lit the landing field like a sunrise, followed by screams in the comm feed. "Commander!" cried a voice over the speaker. Medical Officer Hale. "We have refugees locked out of Bunker 6. The doors aren't cycling. They're pounding on the outside." "Override from control," Rek snapped. "We already tried. The system's blind down there." People were making choices on instinct now. Civilians refusing to enter the bunkers, afraid of being buried. One shouted that the surface was safer. Another tried to climb a moving transport. They don't trust us anymore. Officers shouting over one another. A security team tried to force order in Bunker 8, resulted in a brawl. More time lost. The few militia assigned to Tallaric 4, 6 men across the whole installation, were already spread thin escorting transport lines. One was confirmed dead, another wounded. The others weren't answering. Rek opened a private line. "Lorette, status on launch tunnels?" "Blocked or collapsed," she replied, voice flat. "You have one functional launch corridor left. It fits 300, not more." There were nearly 1,000 civilians left. "Start boarding immediately," Rek ordered. "That only covers 1/3, she pressed. "What about the rest?" "They go underground. Every meter we have." Lorette hesitated. Then, "That's not shelter. That's a grave." Rek didn't look at her. "Do it anyway. If it buys them 14 hours, it's enough." In the silence that followed, he opened a channel on all bands. Civilian, engineering, security. "This is Commander Rek. Launch Bay 4 is active. Repeat, Launch Bay 4 is active. All priority evacuees proceed immediately under escort. All others, move to the subterranean shelters. Stay low, remain silent. Await further instruction." He cut the feed. No response. No calls. Just silence. Then, another orbital impact. The main observation spire collapsed in flames. Rek closed his eyes, then opened a transmission to the pirate formation. "Unaligned vessels, this is a civilian installation. We are not combatants. We are requesting immediate ceasefire. We will evacuate all personnel. Repeat, this is not a military site. We surrender." No reply. Another bolt hit the north wall, sending debris across the communications dome. "They're not listening," Flock whispered. "No," Rex said, voice hollow. "They're making sure we hear nothing at all." He watched the counter on the edge of his screen tick down. 13 hours, 12 minutes. A thin line of static shimmered across the edge of the tactical map, then vanished. Inside Core 9, the control deck was bathed in low emergency lighting, punctuated by warning glyphs pulsing on every surface. Commander Kurvan Rek stood still in the near darkness, shoulders heavy, breathing controlled. His eyes flicked toward the corner of the primary display. The countdown had ended. The timer hit 0. All zeros. For a long moment, nothing changed. Above Tallaric 4, the fleet of the Dissident Alliance floated in quiet orbit. A staggered cloud of mismatched warships and pirate skimmers maintained their positions with a kind of arrogant patience. Engines flared only when needed. Smaller vessels peeled off to scan sectors one by one. They hadn't faced resistance in over 12 hours. Aboard the pirate dreadskiff Crawlstorm, Captain Volar Rask loomed over a flickering hollow map of the colony below. His species, Zikari, had no visible mouth, only slits across the faceplate of his skull-like helm and skin like molten onyx crust. His forearms worked in tandem as he adjusted frequency intercepts and coordinate layers. "Recon skiffs are halfway down," reported one of his sub-commanders, a heavy-set Urteg with moss-green armored scales and facial ridges like folded rock. Volar gave no indication of emotion. "Final scans? Scattered survivors. Shields are all but dead. Transmissions are silent. Automated systems ceased responding 30 cycles ago. We just need to plant the flag." Volar turned away, observing the damage below through a wide viewport. Fires burned along the cratered surface. The colony looked like a broken circuit board embedded in dust. "Then plant it," he said. As 2 more reconnaissance vessels descended toward the surface, the void twisted. Not dramatically, not with force or spectacle, but with silence. 3 shapes emerged from fold space just behind the upper fringe of the pirate formation. They did not arrive with bursts or gravitational shockwaves. There was no turbulence, no sound, no energy bloom. One moment, the sector was empty. The next, it contained 3 human ships. They weren't large, no capital-class hulls. They were matte black, irregular in profile, angles too smooth to read, too sharp to trace. They had no external weapons arrays visible, no IFF signals, no heat signatures. Nothing broadcasted, no call signs, no affiliation tags. On the crawlstorm, a bridge operator, a blue-skinned Corvani with triple-slit eyes and symbiotic data tendrils around his jaw, stared at his console. "I have something," he said. Volar turned. "Define." "I don't know. They didn't arrive. They were just there. No fold entry spike, no thermal trail, no gravitational wake." "They're cloaked?" "No, sir," the Corvani answered, confused. "They're not hiding. They're invisible until they aren't. Sensors caught nothing. Visual only." Volar approached the screen. 3 human ships hovered like shards of black glass in the middle of the orbital formation. "What in the deep void is that?" Down on Talaric 4, Rek had already noticed. The main screen of Core 9 flickered once, then cleared. 3 new signals had bypassed every alert protocol, registering only as static distortions before resolving into shapes. The operators around him stood frozen. Even Flock, usually verbose under stress, said nothing. The human vessels descended. They passed through the pirate formation without resistance. No one fired. No one moved. They slipped through gaps between capital ships and fighter wings, never brushing paths, never drawing attention until it was too late to stop them. On board the pirate corvette Fanghook, Lieutenant Drosk, an insectoid Taraxi with transparent wing covers and glossy black limbs, stammered into the comm. "Command, unidentified craft descending. No registration, no transponder, no visible crew." "They're moving, like they already knew our formation." "Why don't they say anything?" muttered Flock in Core 9. "Why don't they broadcast anything?" Jarrell answered under his breath. "Because they don't need to." The human ships glided over the colony's fractured skyline. No landing gear deployment, no heat plume. They simply stopped moving, and the dust beneath them settled like they'd always been there. No landing noise, no shift in gravity. Even the wind seemed to hold still. One of the younger Kurtal technicians, Dekan, not more than 50 cycles old, stepped closer to the screen, his crest twitching in confusion. "Why aren't they opening communications? Are they waiting for confirmation?" Jarrell murmured. "Maybe. We're not part of the equation." From a pirate scout cruiser, static buzzed as a technician tried to align thermal scans. Still no internal signatures, no heat, no movement. They could be empty shells. "They're not empty," Rask said, staring at the screen. "They're occupied. You just won't see by looking." Aboard the crawlstorm, chaos edged into the voices. "Reposition the forward squadron. Prep boarding parties." "If they've landed," we respond, "No." Volar's voice cut through the chatter. "No," he repeated. "No one moves. No one fires. We wait." But it was too late. 2 of the orbiting pirate skimmers had already begun descent patterns to investigate the human landing zone. They passed over the cracked surface of the colony, scanning for power sources, weapons heat, movement. They reached the coordinates, then vanished. Not exploded, not destroyed, vanished. One moment they were above the crater ridge, next, their signals ceased. Silence. "Lost contact with Skiff 1 and 2, barked the Corvani operator. "Run trace diagnostics," Volar growled. "Nothing to trace. They're just gone." Back in Core 9, silence blanketed the control room. The low hum of auxiliary systems had dimmed. Even the occasional flicker of arc lighting overhead had steadied. It was like the base itself was holding its breath. Rex stepped forward and saw it. 3 black ships. No insignia, no communication, no threat signal. They had landed in the heart of a burning colony without a word. He glanced at the clock. 3 minutes since touchdown. He murmured, 3 minutes. The 4th minute began with a flicker, then darkness. Inside Core 9, every surface sensor feed linked to surface visuals abruptly blinked out, one after another, like lights dying across a corridor. The central hollow map fractured into overlapping static. glyphs jittering and reappearing as ghost images. Technician Deacon leaned over his console, fingers darting across the input surface. I lost layer 4 and 5. 6 is gone too. Rek moved to his side. Switch to auxiliary cams. They're already on, Deacon muttered, confused. These are live feeds, or they were. Flock was already working in parallel. Switching to thermal, nothing. Switching to atmospheric, still nothing. It's not interference. Jarrell cut in, voice low. It's like the planet's reflecting us, like the ground's become a mirror. On every screen, black. Not empty, not static, just black, like looking into depthless stone. Even shadows reflect light, Flock muttered. This absorbs it. Outside the command dome, the wind had stopped. Dust hung in the air, motionless. Rek felt it in his chest, a wrongness, not of violence, but of suspension, like something unseen had pressed its hand over the entire colony and told it to wait. Begin recalibration protocol, Rek ordered. His voice felt too loud. Decan nodded, whispering, Yes, Commander. Even he seemed afraid to break the silence. Each technician at their post worked at half volume, instinctively reducing their speech. Flock typed commands slower than usual. Lorette returned from the lower corridor, stepping lightly as though afraid the floor might echo. Rek stepped into the center of the command ring, surrounded by darkened displays and half-lit status boards. Drones? He asked. Flock answered without turning. 5 units still operational 2 minutes ago. Then they just stopped responding. No damage report, no shutdown, just off. Restart them manually. I did. They're there, but they're not reacting. It's like someone rewrote their behavior from the inside out. Another technician in the rear, Taval, tall and slender, crest still damaged from the previous cycle's structural collapse, spoke in a whisper. Should we be talking this loud? Lorette froze. So did Decan. Jarrell's voice barely carried. What if they're listening? Rek didn't answer. He didn't need to. Whatever had arrived wasn't asking for permission, only silence. Overhead, the emergency lights dimmed, no mechanical fault. Just dimmed, as if obeying some unseen cue. Rek turned slowly to one of the side consoles and switched to orbital relay backup. Show me the dissident fleet, he commanded. The projection sputtered, then stabilized. The pirate vessels were holding position, but some had begun to drift slightly out of formation. Above the planet, inside the pirate corvette Fanghook, Lieutenant Drosk stood alone on the sensor deck. His wings were folded tight to his back, his compound eyes unfocused as the data scrolled past. Still no contact with skiff teams, a voice called over comms. We lost 2, then another 4. No sign of crash indicators, no wreckage, no heat bloom, another added. They're not being destroyed, Drosk muttered. They're being removed. Captain Volar Rask, aboard the Crawlstorm, was already pacing in a 4-legged gait across his command deck. The Corvani sensor officer was panicking, his tendrils twitching erratically, data ports spasming from feedback surges. Captain, our scans are failing. No ground visibility, no mapping. Everything we send just stops working once it gets low enough. Deploy more eyes, Rask ordered. The order was relayed instantly. 4 more light-class corvettes dropped from orbit, each piloted by mercenaries from different sectors, Rulmar, Garrick, and a rare Icarid commander in the last. They entered the atmosphere. Each one vanished. The ship signatures didn't explode. They didn't distort. The telemetry just ceased, like they'd hit a wall no one could see. Back in Core 9, Flock's voice was barely audible. Commander, the pirates are scattering formation. Rek turned. Show me. A corner holo display showed the orbital fleet beginning to shift. No one moved aggressively, just subtle realignments, gaps forming, units drifting out of triangulation, decentralization without order. Taval whispered, They're afraid. Aboard the Fanghook, Lieutenant Drosk stood motionless, "There's no more pattern," he whispered. "No heat trail, no sensor logic, no formation coherence." His superior barked over comms. "Then follow protocol and press the surface." "No," Drosk interrupted. "There is no protocol for this." The comm channel went quiet. Inside Core 9, Jarrell stepped back from his station. "They're starting to think like us now." Rek looked up. "How do you mean?" "They're confused, out of sync. They don't trust their own systems. We've lived like that for the last 14 hours. And now?" Jarrell glanced toward the blacked-out display. "Now they've joined us. They've stepped into the dark and realized they can't feel the walls either." Across the control deck, no one spoke above a whisper. Each movement was calculated, every glance cautious. Not because they were afraid of attack, but because they were afraid of being noticed. Outside, the human ships had not moved. Not a single hatch opened, no beacon, no lights. They remained fixed on the surface like tombstones, casting no shadow, broadcasting no presence. But something was happening, and everyone, pirate, Kurtal or otherwise, understood that. The humans had just one language for that: silence. The 5th minute started with a scream, not a human scream, not even organic. A shriek of modulated frequencies cut off mid-transmission, tore through the interfleet comms of the Dissident Alliance like a torn signal cable sparking inside a vacuum. "Kresh Tal is fragmenting." Its hull peeled like fruit, then folded inward like paper. The voice was distorted, high-pitched, alien, an Yakrali officer, judging by the vocal texture. His words echoed across multiple vessels before the line abruptly died, followed by static. And then something worse. A lingering pulse. Not a hum, not feedback. A layered static that flickered through every open channel, repeating in erratic cadence. Beneath the crackle, something faint tried to form. A modulation that sounded like language, but refused to become one. Inside Core 9, the Kurtal stared at the transmission relays, silent. Flock broke the hush. "Is that our system?" "No," Jarrell said, eyes locked on the playback buffer. "That's theirs." On board the pirate dreadskiff Crawlstorm, Captain Volar Rask stood rigid, mandibles clenched behind his obsidian helmet. Across the bridge, crew members shouted, some without even checking who was listening. "Skiff 6 just detonated mid-drop. No contact, no impact. Rulmar heavy-class Thorn Cage just vanished from long range. Gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Kresh Tal was breaking apart, sir. The hull was flexing." "Flexing?" Rask repeated, turning toward the speaker, Sub-Commander Hertak, a thin-limbed sectari with dual ocular spines and shaking claws. Hertak's eyes vibrated. "It looked like it was folding in on itself, Captain. Like space turned upside." The transmission ended. The channel cut. Gone. A second voice flared up, this time from the Grimhook, a strike frigate captained by a mercenary contingent from the Levick Consortium. "They're inside. They're inside the ship. Repeat, gone." On Core 9, Rek leaned toward the comm display, jaw tight, hands braced on the console. "Log it," he ordered. "Every cut line, every last second." Flock was already nodding. "It's not just comms. Look, trajectory scans are breaking up." Jarrell added, "Ships are fleeing, random vectors, no coordination. Some are crashing into each other trying to escape orbit." A series of new flashes lit up the high-altitude sensors. Tiny at first, short bursts of distorted energy that didn't match any conventional detonation signature. Then came the light. From the observation dome, Lorette's voice rang out. "Commander, look." Through the thick glass dome, the sky over Talaric 4 pulsed. Not like lightning, not like battlefire. The light curved, bent. A long ribbon of space twisted across the upper atmosphere, shimmering with colors that didn't exist on any spectrum. Then the shadows came. Not cast, not created. They moved. They curled around the human ships like smoke drawn to flame, but without heat, without source. They bent around structures, crossed the cracked soil, touched nothing and changed everything. One slid across the wreckage of a mining module, and the entire frame imploded, not with violence, but with collapse, like the metal had forgotten how to hold itself together. Rek opened a direct channel on the high-frequency diplomatic band. "Human Command, this is Commander Kuravan Rek of Telarik 4. Please respond." Nothing. He tried again. Then a signal. Plain. Text only. One line. "Zone secure. Engagement concluded." Rek stared. "That's it?" Lorette whispered. Commander Rek didn't have time to answer. Because at that exact second, the last pirate transmission ceased. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't static. It was a silence so abrupt, it registered as sound, a vacuum pressing inward through every console. Flock looked up from his terminal. "Commander, all pirate signals gone. No comms, no telemetry, no sensor traces." "How many ships?" Jarrell answered without emotion. "We were tracking 71 signatures. Now, 0. "Scan for wreckage," Rek ordered. Flock hesitated. "There is none." "What?" "No debris field, no radiation spike, no gravitational disturbance, just nothing." As if they were erased from a simulation, not destroyed in real space. Jarrell murmured, 8 seconds ago we had pings. They were still there, then gone. Every signal terminated within the same 8-second window. Rek stepped back. He looked at the black screen where a fleet had existed minutes ago, looked at the flat readouts, the frozen wind outside, the unmoving human ships, and the silence. The wrong kind of silence. "This wasn't war," said Taval, the wounded technician in the rear. Rek didn't turn. "This wasn't war," Taval repeated. It was something else. In orbit, the remains of the pirate formation, 3 or 4 ships too slow or too distant to engage, fled. No pattern, no command, just raw instinct. One detonated its own core in mid-jump. Another simply drifted into deep space, refusing to answer calls. And the third? It vanished, folding into an impossible angle, swallowed by the same black no-signal field that had consumed the rest. On the comm relay, that layered static tried one last time to form a shape. It didn't succeed, but for one brief second, Rek thought he heard breathing. Not mechanical, not synthetic, human. He didn't speak, he just watched the clock. The 8th minute ended. Outside, the human ships remained still, as if time itself was awaiting further orders. A gravimetric ripple from the last vanishing pirate ship had faded, but Core 9 remained locked in an unnatural quiet. No threat, no fire, just aftermath. Commander Kuravan Rek stood at the edge of the analysis table, hands clasped behind his back, while 4 of his senior specialists gathered around a grid of corrupted data streams. Above them, a holographic sphere pulsed in broken loops, 3/4 static, 1/4 incomprehensible distortions. "There's no heat signature," said Analyst Marin, voice sharp. He was older, his chitin dulled with age, once a leading sensor architect at the Narsun Institute. "No EM resonance, no residual kinetics. There wasn't a single physical strike recorded from the moment they landed." "That's impossible," muttered Varn. Shorter, stockier than the others, his amber fins were trembling with restrained tension. A fleet that size doesn't just disappear. Something hit them. Something had to. "No," Marin snapped back. "You're assuming conventional models. I'm telling you, the logs don't show force application. They show decay." Lorette stood off to the side, arms folded, watching the engineers with cold, measured detachment. "Decay implies time. This happened in 8 seconds." The room fell silent again. Jarrell stepped forward, patching through a backup feed. "I've pulled every external sensor thread that wasn't fried. Audio, thermal, even gravitic feedback. Look." He expanded a section of the playback. It showed one of the pirate ships, the Grimhook, hovering just before it vanished. A cloud of flickering anomalies surrounded its hull, small gliding motes that shimmered with impossible motion. Then, Just before disappearance, a spike in gravitational inversion. The signature twisted inward, collapsed, and was gone. No propulsion, Marin said. No energy burst, just a reversal. Reversal of what? Varn asked. Rek said nothing. His eyes never left the looping footage. We found traces of micro-drones, Lorette said finally, barely the size of a claw, embedded in debris fragments at the edge of the landing zone. Debris? Marin blinked. I thought you said there was no wreckage. There isn't, she replied. Not from the ships, but some of the ore haulers we lost on day 2. We've been recovering partial frames. That's where the drones were embedded. Flock, seated nearby, tapped through the scan overlays. I've tried isolating one of them. Look at this. A grainy 3D model unfolded above the table. The drone was irregular in shape, covered in hexagonal plating that seemed to change angle depending on the viewing axis, as if it didn't want to be perceived the same way twice. I ran its signature through every known database, Flock continued. Military archives, prototyping registries, independent guild systems. Nothing. Of course nothing, Marin muttered. If it's human tech, it's not listed. Jarrell leaned in. Look at the field around it. It's not generating gravity, it's pulling against it. Flock nodded. Reversed polarity, but without collapse. It doesn't behave like a field, more like an echo. Varn exhaled sharply. An echo of what? Lorette looked directly at him. Of presence. It's not trying to push or pull mass. It's distorting the perception that mass exists. Marin slammed his hand against the edge of the table. Enough with philosophy. We're scientists. Give me models. Give me cause and effect. Varn rounded on him. The effect is 71 vessels gone. Our orbital relay buffers melted under the signal load. We still have micro-distortions bouncing off the moon's surface. They weren't fighting. They were erasing. Like they never meant to leave evidence, Jarrell said quietly, pulling up one last data string. The humans, I mean. There's no evidence of directed weapons fire. No engagement commands. No fire control telemetry. Varn stared. What are you saying? Joral's eyes scanned the raw feed, his voice low. They weren't fighting. They were cleaning. Marin's hands curled into fists. You mean executing? No, Jor-El snapped, louder now. I mean what I said. No mess, no retaliation, no damage spread, just purpose. Taval, from the back wall, whispered. They were clearing the board. The table dimmed as the last feed burned out. Silence again. Flock stood, staring at the display. None of this fits any tactical profile. There's no motive chain, no logic tree. They landed, waited 3 minutes, and then resolved the problem. Resolved? Varn scoffed. That's what you call this? No casualties on their side, Jarrell said. No visible activity, no commands, just execution of a single-state solution. Marin looked straight at Rek. Commander, what is this? What are we supposed to take from this? Rek didn't respond. He wasn't looking at them. He was staring at the last intact frame captured by their external drone array. The 3 human ships, still motionless, still casting no shadow, parked on cracked stone that now bore no sign of impact, no residual heat, no scorched dust. As if even the ground refused to remember what happened there. And no explanation. They weren't defending the colony, Jorrell said, not quite asking. They weren't establishing territory. They didn't broadcast intent. So what were they doing? No one answered. Then Varn said, almost breathless, were they fighting? Or just cleaning the field? The words hung in the air longer than anyone wanted to admit. Rek's gaze didn't move. He wasn't judging them, wasn't weighing their theories. He simply listened. And outside, the ships hadn't moved. The echo of the last data stream had long faded when Commander Kurvan Rek stepped onto the obsidian silver platform of the provisional hall. The silence of Core 9 was gone, replaced now by something colder, something cultivated. The grand chamber of the Galactic Protectorate was as silent as it was sterile. Circular, immense, and clinical, it was illuminated by filtered white light, diffused through crystalline panels set into the ceiling like artificial sky. The light left no shadows, no warmth, no distinction between day or judgment. Rek's footsteps echoed lightly across the polished floor as he moved toward the center. He wore a formal mantle over his uniform, dark matte blue, unadorned, its collar pressed high, his crest fully retracted. The scars beneath his left eye, earned decades prior in the Vera trade conflict, were uncovered, unmasked. Seated around the perimeter, the counselors of the Provisional Assembly watched him descend into the focus circle. 33 delegates, 33 species. Not one of them moved. The human seat remained conspicuously empty. A low chime rang, artificial and emotionless. The Assembly's president, High Chair Serox Valyun of the Tevarari, a thin, blue-pale humanoid with translucent crown ridges and reflective eyes, spoke first. Commander Rek of Talaric 4, you stand before this council by emergency summons. The floor recognizes your authority under Wartime Article 17. His voice was level, mechanical in cadence. State your report. Rek remained silent. A breath passed, then another. A dark-skinned Drevian delegate leaned forward, Ambassador Kor Veln, known for his intolerance of delay. His voice came metallic, enhanced through an old cranial modulator. Commander Rek, your declaration and records. We await them. Rek finally reached into the folds of his mantle and withdrew a small device. Triangular, smooth, matte gray. He stepped forward and placed it onto the circular input pedestal at the chamber's center. The device didn't activate. Rek didn't prompt it. You may access the data, he said. His voice was calm, almost soft. But I would advise against it. A ripple passed through the chamber, not in sound, but in motion. Two delegates shifted in their seats. One lowered his datapad. Several others exchanged glances, subtle movements, micro-expressions. The only signs of discomfort allowed in a place engineered to suppress it. You are withholding classified intelligence from this council, demanded a sharp voice to Rek's left. Councillor Varen Jusk of the Taraki, tall and armored in layered carapace plates, leaned forward. That is a direct violation of transparency under Protocol C9. I am not withholding anything, Rek replied evenly. I am offering it. But I'm telling you what it is. Another pause. Councillor Solin Day, young, rigid, human-adjacent, but from a spliced lineage unknown to Rek, began to stand. His lips had just parted to speak when Serox Valyun raised a hand. The chamber obeyed. Continue, Valyun said, addressing Rek. Rek stepped back once, placing both hands behind him. His stance remained straight, voice steady. I witnessed what happened at Talaric 4. My officers recorded the events. My analysts attempted to quantify them. They failed. He let the silence linger. What took place on that surface was not a battle. There was no exchange, no resistance, no assault. There were no losses on the human side, and no understanding on ours. Then what do you call it? Asked Velen. Rek looked directly at the council. It was a demonstration, he said. A message sent without language and without signature. A reminder to every species watching that the humans have not forgotten how to act when diplomacy ends. A low hum reverberated through the chamber walls. No sound, just the perception of space reacting to the words. Rek stepped forward again, touching the data device lightly. You can study the logs, run your simulations, deconstruct what little telemetry survived, but I warn you now, none of it will offer comfort. Nothing will clarify how they did what they did. You will find no tactical architecture, no battle logic, just patterns you don't recognize. And what did you find? Asked Valyun. You were there. Rek looked down, then back up. "I found silence," he said, "and I found a line that once crossed does not allow for negotiation." His voice remained level. He didn't blink. No calls for surrender, no claims of territory, no offer of partnership. They didn't warn. They didn't explain. They landed, they waited, and they erased the threat. Silence followed. One breath too long, then two. Counselor Day finally broke it. "So what do you suggest, Commander? That we fear them?" Rek tilted his head slightly. "I suggest you do not test them." Valun lowered his hand again. "This session is recorded and complete," he said. He didn't dismiss anyone. He didn't move. The data device remained on the pedestal, untouched. Rek turned slowly and walked back up the incline, boots silent on the polished floor. No one addressed him. No voices followed. The light did not change. The temperature did not shift. As he reached the exit archway, he looked back once. The chamber was still lit by its perfect white glow, shadowless, sterile, as if untouched by the story just told within it. No one moved to access the device. No one reached for the data. The door sealed behind him with a hiss. 2 rotations after the council session concluded, the system of Tellaric 4 remained untouched, not by decree, not by law, but by instinct. At the edge of the system's orbital boundary, a Velka survey drone glided in a wide, cautious arc, its mirrored wings flexing as it transmitted high-frequency scans in bursts. The machine had been dispatched by the Velka Science Syndicate under diplomatic cover, operating just beyond the radius where, days ago, 71 pirate ships had vanished without trace. Its logs filled with silence. No gravimetric fluctuation, no radiological spike, no electromagnetic pollution, nothing. In the observation hall of the Jurex Ascendancy's Outer Fleet Command, a tactical screen displayed a trisector map. Systems blinked in yellow, blue, and green. Tellaric 4 blinked in red. Solid, constant. Not because it was occupied, because it wasn't. Fleet Admiral Kel Vor stood before the screen, mandibles tight, 3 of his 4 hands clasped behind his back. The upper pair gripped a data panel. His second-in-command, a pale-skinned Krenari officer named Bael Thon, approached slowly. "Admiral, merchant guilds are requesting clearance to resume passage near Tellaric 4. Trade routes remain obstructed." Vor didn't look at him. Did they see what happened there? Thon paused. "Only fragments." The council session was closed, logs unreleased. Vor tapped the data panel once. A confidential tag glowed red across the top. Beneath it, a single title line. Tellaric 4, do not deploy human assets, unless you want it all to end. The document wasn't encrypted, but no one opened it. Vor handed the panel to Thon. "Cancel all convoy routes through that region." "Official reason?" Thon asked. Vor's eyes remained locked on the red dot. "Caution." Across the next 12 hours, 5 other sovereigns rerouted traffic. Not one declared Tellaric 4 a restricted zone. No sanctions, no embargoes, just silence. One military coalition decommissioned a refueling station on the border. A patrol fleet altered its training trajectory to avoid the entire sector. And still, no ship crossed the threshold. No explanation circulated. No discussion followed. In the lower corridors of the Athelian Diplomatic Corps, a junior analyst named Voss Terry flagged the circulating memorandum to his director. The director deleted the message without reading it. The subject line was enough. On a deep space relay station operated by the Galari Strategic Assembly, a triangular transmission marker was received with the same memo. One of the officers reached for it. Another shook his head. They logged the file under non-actionable. No one ever asked why. Half a sector away, in an unregistered human command station orbiting the star Alra 17, the lights were low. The station's interior was designed for function over aesthetics. Matte black consoles, gray steel floors, deep red status glyphs hovering in midair. A faint mechanical hum was the only constant sound. Captain Thomas Olson sat reclined in a high-backed command chair, eyes half-lidded, one boot resting against the base of the console. He wore an operations uniform stripped of insignia, collar open, sleeves rolled to the elbow. Lieutenant Commander Alexander Wang stood beside him, scanning through a thin holographic report feed projected from the core table. 14 minutes, Wang said. Autonomous protocol chain ran without deviation. Orbital, subterranean, and atmospheric nodes synchronized to sub-millisecond accuracy. Olson didn't move. Telemetry loss? 0, Wang replied. Sensor net recorded all gravitational shifts, field distortions, and thermal signatures. Drones reported no exposure, no contamination, no deviation from expected response logic. And the colony? 71% civilian survival, Wang said. Extraction tunnels held. No structure breach past red zone perimeter. 0 human interaction required. Olson finally opened one eye. Confirm that last part. Wang didn't hesitate. No direct human engagement. Operators never broke seal. AI handlers performed all escalations based on Tier 4 command trees. Not a single ship required crewed override. Olson stared at the ceiling. Wang added, threat signature neutralized. No wreckage remains. Enemy assets erased within predictive margin. There was a silence. Olson nodded. Transmitting? Just sent the package to Fleet Central. Standard priority. Marked as routine. Olson raised an eyebrow. Routine? Wang nodded. Filed under non-tactical incident resolution. Olson laughed once, humorless. The Galactic Council will be screaming behind closed doors for a decade, and we file it under maintenance. Wang offered a dry smile. Better that way. Olson rubbed his temples. Let me guess. No response from the Council block yet? None expected. They'll let it sink in first. Olson stood up, stretching his arms. Any anomalies flagged during cleanup? Wang checked the terminal. One gravitic imprint persisted 7 seconds longer than forecasted. But it was internal echo. No external source. Olson pulled on a black jacket from the chair's back. Good. Keep it that way. He walked toward the side console, tapped a sequence, and dimmed the room's lights further. Wang looked up. You're calling it? Mission's done. Logs clean. No follow-ups pending. He glanced at the display one last time. A red dot still marked the Tellaric 4 sector. No alerts, no blinking. Just a symbol. Wang shut down the primary feed and turned toward the door. I'll grab coffee. Olson followed. Make it strong. I'm falling asleep over here. They stepped into the corridor, passing beneath a steel placard that read, Command Node, Silent Vector, Human Autonomous Strategic Deployment Division. As the door closed behind them, the lights in the operations room dimmed to standby, and Tellaric 4 remained where it was, untouched, unclaimed, understood. Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Oh, and one last thing. Every great soldier knows that to survive and become a hero, taking care of yourself is key. So before you go, check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's important. And I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.